Here we go. Let's go. This is the media I consumed in 2023. We're going to be going over every single thing that I either watched, read, played, I guess video games as well, viewed, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Literally every piece of entertainment. Minus things like YouTube videos, because I'm not keeping track of that, let's be honest. Let's be real. Maybe I could have kept track of like the big ones, like the Summoning Salt videos where he goes over all the speedrunning stuff. It doesn't really matter. We're going to be going over the major main stuff, and I'll be going relatively quickly over some things, and some things will get more time, as well as less spoilers and stuff. I'm gonna try to make sure I don't spoil anything. That's the whole point of this. I just want to talk about my thoughts about all of these things. So you're seeing a slideshow. I'm going to show every little thing on the slideshow. I have in front of me the little mini reviews that I did for every single one of the things that I did over the last year. And so I'll mostly be reading that. So that's why my eyes will be darting down to the script instead of just looking directly at the camera like this. Just a heads up. Okay, without further ado, let's start it off with January. So at the beginning of January, can I just hit the space bar? Sure can. The beginning of January, I started with Violet Evergarden. So we did this for our anime podcast, and I mean, that's about it. It was one of our watch-along episodes for our anime podcast. Violet Evergarden, okay. So this is the very beginning when I first started doing this, so a lot of my notes aren't as big and in-depth as they will be later on, so just bear with me. Anyway, Violet Evergarden, I said, really dang good, made me cry multiple times. Easy characters to like, and stories that hit close to home. Anyone could honestly watch this and enjoy it, regardless if they like anime or not. That still holds up in my opinion. It's obviously a very short and sweet little saying, but yeah, I agree with that. Violet Evergarden is phenomenal. There was very, very, very powerful moments in it. Really, really good little short stories that could probably resonate with most people. I'm sure somebody could find something in it that works really well for them. Next thing is also in our anime watch-along, Life is Daijobu. We've got Afro Samurai. I do not remember liking Afro Samurai at all. In fact, here we go. Did not care for this one very much. It was incredibly gory, and that's about it. The story wasn't compelling to me all that much, but it had moments of fun. So, yeah, Afro Samurai. Oh, shoot, I probably should have threw on some music. Yeah, let's get some music going. My bad. I'm going to turn down my microphone a touch, too. I will be as quick as I can with this music. We're gonna throw on some lo-fi chill beats. We might have an ad too. Video game lo-fi. There we go. That'll always work. That always works. We got. Here we go. Oh, I like this person. We like their stuff. Okay, I'm going to wait for the ad to be over. I'm going to plug my headphones too. Turn it down. There we go, cool. Hopefully it's not too loud. It shouldn't be. I don't see why it would be too loud. I can see both of the different audio levels, so. Anyway, let's continue on. Yes, Afro Samurai, not great. Let's get into something that is great. Mushoku Tensei. I love this light novel. I think it's super, super fun. So this is also one of the things that I had done with this list prior that kind of I didn't do later on. This thing and then one other thing does the same thing. Where I didn't actually read volume 1 of the light novel. I read volume 16, 17, 18, and 19 over the whole year. Sorry about that weird mouth noise my mouth made. So I just threw volume 1 up because volumes 16 through 19 can have a little bit of spoilers on the cover themselves if you don't know anything about the story, or if you do know about the story as well. So I will be very vague with what I'm reading over my my thing. It says this was so much fun to read. This is volume 16. This is the first one that I missed in favor of continuing with the web novel. So the light novel wasn't completely translated of Mushoku Tensei when I first read it through. So when I got to volume 16, I had to start reading the web novel, which was a poorly translated web novel from Japanese to English. I'm assuming it was like Google Translate. But anyway, here we go. So it's so much fun to get back into the incredibly crafted world of Mushoku Tensei with new things that weren't in the web novel, like going to this specific area and having this specific arc. Love the character interactions, and even though I know how it plays out, it's still fun. Okay, so that was in January. I'm gonna go ahead and just do all of them because while we're here, you know. So February, I read volume 18, which says I definitely read this one much slower than the prior. Oh, I forget 17. 17 was February, excuse me. This one stayed closer to the web novel with little deviations, but still fun to read. This arc is one of my most favorite arcs in the series. I love the characters in it specifically and was happy to see things fleshed out a bit more. I'm gonna get some drink. Not as exciting to me as 16 with the lack of new content, but still very gripping, and I still read it very fast. Other than that, it's more of the same, which is phenomenal. So that was 17 in February. Volume 18 I read in May, which says, I definitely read this one much slower than the prior two. It is a lot slower paced than the others as well, which I'm sure was part of the reason for that. It follows the web novel very closely, but in greater detail, even more than just usual. From what I recall, nothing new, save for some insight, like with this person's backstory. Still good, though. I especially love the intro to this volume as I did in the web novel. Love seeing this character do this for this person. There's the spoiler free. Volume, that was 18. So volume 19 I read all the way in October. So it says, I have volume 19 listed as finishing in October. While that is correct, I definitely had the majority of it finished a couple months back. True. I left the prologue chapter for who knows why, for like months after I finished the whole volume. The prologue chapters are out. These characters, to my memory, not much change from the web novel to this volume. Of course, it wasn't bad and had the usual more details with more understanding and wording. This volume was downright depressing. Very true. This volume is incredibly depressing, which is partly why I waited so long for the prologue chapter. Like, I knew it going in, but because of the better use of words, it hit me even more. This person's understandable fright and unease in taking part in this big event was done in a very real way. This person is the GOAT in this chapter. Very, very vague, sorry. And I like how the light novel focused more on their mental state after the events with the event. Great point of view that I don't remember being in the web novel. Very true. I remember that. Another great volume. Cool. So that was Mushoku Tensei. Those are the 4 volumes I read throughout the year. Now we've got Metal Hellsinger. Double checking it looks alright on the thing. So Metal Hellsinger. This game is great. Honestly, it's a ton of fun, and in my opinion is the best when played in short bursts. I first started it on launch day, but quickly got burnt out on its repetitiveness. But when I came back to finish it, it was still a ton of fun. Real good and worth the low price for sure, especially if you like a shooter game. It's a shooter game that is mixed with a rhythm game, so if you like one or the other, you'd probably like this one. Skylar's got a video on the main channel about 5 rhythm games you should play. I'm pretty positive this one's in here. No, not pretty positive. I know for a fact it is, so go check it out. Next up is Summertime Rendering the Manga. I was surprised by this one. Didn't really expect it to be so good when I started, especially after buying them on a whim and then waiting almost a year for a delayed pre-order of the hardcover version. Yeah, so when Right Stuff was still a thing, I pre-ordered the hardcover special edition version, whatever, on a whim, just because it was on sale. And I said, okay, I'll buy the whole series. That's not entirely true. I bought the first 3 of the hardcovers. Let's continue. Sometimes I was a bit confused as to what was happening, but it wasn't that bad. The ending wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but it was still very satisfying and good. So yeah, I read the first 3 volumes very quickly, and after finishing the first volume, I quickly pre-ordered or ordered the next 3 to make sure I got them, and that they would be at my house by the time I got to those volumes. I'm pretty sure I beat the volumes, though. Alright. The Experience Share podcast is still ongoing, but I binged about 2 years worth of content in about 3 months. Great chemistry between the hosts with some great guests. Love the concept of going through each Pokemon game too. They keep it entertaining all throughout. Love this podcast. Comes out every Tuesday. It's phenomenal. It's two dudes talking about Pokemon and them playing through it together. One of them at the start hadn't played any Pokemon games, save for little bits and pieces here and there. The other one had played through mostly all of them. And at this point where they are now, they are on Legends Arceus, so they're caught up with where the games were releasing when they started the podcast, essentially. So, a lot of fun. Great podcast. Like I said, great chemistry. Hilarious. Their stories are fun. Good stuff. If you like Pokemon, watch it. Or read it. Excuse me. If you like Pokemon, listen to it. It's a podcast. Okay, here's the other one. Free Run Beyond Journey's End. I started this forever ago. So, this year, I read volume 7, 8, and 9. Because those are the volumes that came out this year. 7 was, of course, in January. We're still January. 8 was in July, and 9 was in December. So, here it is, volume 7. What can I say? I love this manga so much. It's so fun to see this character back into the story, and their interactions with this character are very cute. They are great and awesome. This person is still great, and I love their character growth as well. Okay, volume 8. Forgot to write about this when I read it. Oh, yeah, because of the whole mix-up on the, yeah. But I mean, like, it's literally peak manga, so I don't know much else to say. I need to say this volume felt almost like a complete condensed story, which was a bit different from the prior. I only noticed this because I read them by the volume, though. Very true. Volume 8, you could pretty much just read that volume by itself, and it'd be a standalone. Volume 9 in December says, still more great moments, and back to the end half starts an... And back to the end half of the volume starts an arc that will be finished in the next volume. I love the characters. They have little moments that build them up rather than huge arcs that change their whole being, and I love it. Quickly pushing its way up to my top 3 manga of all time. Free Run is phenomenal. I love it. It is really, really good. Don't know what else to say. Just read it. It's great. If you like manga, if you like fantasy, give it a shot. What I don't like is Platinum End. Damn, was this a disappointment. The highs were great, but the lows were very bad. Very compelling up until about volume 9, and then it slows down, takes a bit for the slow philosophical part to get interesting, and when you're happy with how things turn out, the ending is a dumpster fire. It's a trash manga. I don't know why I kept going with it. This is another one I bought on a whim because I got it all on sale. I still own it, and I'm probably going to sell it at some point. I do not like this manga. Alright, Gladiator. This is the first of many movies that I watched with my buddies. We would get together like once a week. We still do it occasionally, but back then we did it a lot more in January-ish. Okay, Gladiator. Honestly, I can't remember much about this show because I basically watched it and 300 back to back. The next one's 300. But I'm pretty sure I liked this one more. There seemed to be more of a story in it, and that's about it. I was entertained. Yeah, I don't remember too much, honestly, and same with 300 as well. I really don't remember much about these. They are very similar movies, but very different at the same time. 300, I say, basically what I said about Gladiator, but even more. I really don't remember this show much, but I was still entertained. Alright, Blade Runner. Honestly, it didn't live up to the hype that I had for this movie. I can see why it's good and why it's very influential to the cyberpunk genre, but I don't think it was for me. The ending wasn't super great, in my opinion, either. Yeah, I definitely built up the hype in my head way too much about Blade Runner. I don't know why I did as much as I did, but it's from the 80s. I shouldn't have expected it to be this incredibly visual storytelling piece. I bet 2049 is that, so maybe someday when I watch that, I'll be able to have a better opinion on the whole series. Alright, so in January I went to a Jazz game, a Utah Jazz basketball game versus the Trailblazers. I'm pretty sure it's the Trailblazers, but here's the picture. As you can see, the Jazz got smoked. Here's what I have to say. Not a fan by any means of basketball, but it's fun to go to games from time to time. To be honest, I don't particularly remember this game being a great show. Yeah, it was pretty meh. Okay, so this next one, I don't quite know if this is when I finished it. But it's Game of Thrones. I could have finished it in 2022, but I think it was this month of 2023. I'm not going to say a ton about it. I'm not going to go on this big, long rant. At some point, I'd probably do videos that involves Game of Thrones, so I'm going to save most of my thoughts for that. All I'm going to say is not a bad show, great at times and dragged other times. The ending wasn't bad as everyone made it out to be. I do stand by that. I don't think the ending was as bad as everyone made it out to be. I do agree that it wasn't great, and it was clear that the writers didn't care anymore, but not as bad as the people were going crazy about it, in my opinion. All right, we're moving into February. Next month, we've got, I wrote the word on here just in case you wanted to look it up as well, because it's Japanese, and there's no English translation, save for, I think it was fan scanlations. Anyway, Himegoto Jukuyasai no Seifuku. I believe that's how you say it. Okay, now here was an interesting manga. Only 100 chapters, but they had me glued the whole way through. The characters dealing with their sexuality, as well as figuring out who they really are, was great and compelling. The ending was great, and I literally audibly shouted yes when they baited me, thinking it was the way I didn't want to actually be the way I wanted. Very confusing the way I wrote it, but if you got it, you got it. Only wish that Mikako got better pace development. Yeah, I vaguely remember Mikako as a character at this point, but I feel like I remember writing this and the reason why I wrote it. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country. My camera's still looking alright? Yeah, it's alright. It's more Xenoblade, so of course I loved it. The battle system was great, and a nice speedy version of the main games. Not sure what I liked better, but glad I have both. I will say, though, that I think that it handled exploration better than the base game. I was much more inclined to explore, probably mostly because the field skills were locked to your party members, and you couldn't have more than you had. I still don't like field skills, but they were bearable in Torna. The story is heart-achingly beautiful. I broke when this character saw this person at the end. I concur with my past self. This is a phenomenal story. And the gameplay is a lot of fun. I still don't know if I like this one's gameplay better than base game. I like them for different reasons, I guess. Alright, 86, the anime. I can't believe I didn't finish this when I originally watched it. So when I was originally watching this roughly week by week. I think I was a couple weeks behind or so. I was watching it dubbed, and the voice actor for the main character, he did pass away. And I don't think it was during this, but I think his health problems caused the dub for it to be delayed. So very unfortunate, but eventually I did come back and finish watching it. Let's see what else I have to say. It says, due to the passing of Billy Kametz, who was the voice actor, the dub was put on hold for a bit during the break. I forgot about the series. Very true. I did forget that the series basically even existed. I came back to it realizing there were only 2 episodes left, and damn, I gotta say that episode 22 is probably one of the best episodes of anime I've ever seen. When I finished the series, I started all over to get it all in one go. I did, but I never finished it all in one go, so yeah, my bad. I do plan on watching it again someday. I think the story is really good, but just knowing that the anime doesn't cover the entire story, that it's a light novel, I was more inclined to read the light novel than watch the whole anime again. I do agree, though, episode 22 is phenomenal. Yaboy Kong Ming, this is another one we did for our anime podcast. It's great. It says, this is far better than I've ever expected. Really no complaints with it. It was fun the whole way through, and I loved each of the characters. The music was great, and I loved the opening, and the writing is amazingly fun. Superb anime, and I hope there is more to come someday. I concur. I do hope that there's more. Right now there's a movie being made that's like a recap of the entire series, so maybe because of that movie we'll get more, like a season 2. Alright, so this one's interesting. I have this listed as Fly Me to the Moon Manga Part 1. And it's mostly because there's a big point when this manga ends, but then there's like another part to it. They don't actually specifically say it's a part ending, but Skylar told me it was. He was reading it weekly as it came out, so that's how we knew. Alright, this slice of life elements are incredibly wholesome and a joy to read through. The main plot is barely there, only making appearances in the beginning and end. And the idea of the elixir from the tail of the bamboo cutter being drunk was really cool. True. That's kind of a spoiler, sorry. I hated how this person reacted to this person forgetting their encounter. Dumb, very dumb. But maybe I'm missing something. Regardless, I didn't love it. It was, yeah, I'm very mixed on it. I probably will never read any more of this, but you're really there for the slice of life wholesome encounters. You're not really there for the story, the overarching story, so it is what it is. All right, here we go. Me and my buddies did a big Pirates of the Caribbean watch through. I probably should have put that picture down a little bit, but this isn't even all the movies. We watched all the movies that were currently out. So we have Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Men's Chest, At World's End, On Stranger Tides, and Dead Men Tell No Tales. So all 5 movies. And I'm going to read the bullet points in order of the movies. So the first movie is an all-time classic and still holds up. Love it. It's witty, it's got good choreography, and it's fun the whole way through. The second movie suffers from pacing issues, but the choreography steps up, surprisingly still fun to watch and worth it. The third movie also has pacing issues, but still has some great battles. Characters take interesting paths, which are fun, and this one has some incredible set pieces. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite ones of all of them, honestly. 4. This felt like a bit of a reboot. Had some of the same characters, but the overarching plot from the first 3 wasn't present as it had wrapped up in the end of the third. Not a terrible movie, though. Some fun moments and nice callbacks to the first movie. I'd say it was basically the Force Awakens of the Pirates of the Caribbean world. Yeah, interesting take, Cole, from the past. 5 is, this one wasn't great. Like, not the worst thing I've ever seen, but I honestly forgot most of the plot the moment credits rolled. I liked how it used Will and Elizabeth's son, but it felt like it was a movie too late. Tried to jump on the old movie bandwagon, but fell off. I guess, yeah, it came out way too late and wasn't a part of the rest of the Pirates of the Caribbean hype. I think that's what I was meaning. All right, here's the big one. Mistborn: The Final Empire. All right, here's some good food. Wow, I was blown away with this one. Even though I tried the books in the past, this time I was hooked. The world building is absolutely phenomenal, and now I understand why people put Brandon Sanderson on a pedestal. The magic system is so fun, and I love it. Very unique cast is also great. Honestly, it's a 10 out of 10 book. The issues I had were few and far between, but honestly, it's ranked so high probably because I haven't read many books. Really dang good. The magic system alone is basically what captivated me in the entire story. It's essentially, like, you can ingest metal. Like, some people can ingest different types of metal, and based on which metal they ingest, they have different powers that correspond with that. Very unique, very cool, a lot of fun. The story's great. You're going to be seeing the rest of the Mistborn saga throughout the entire year as we go through them. Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead. This is technically volume 9, and so this is the first one. I read multiple volumes of this throughout the year, and at one point I got caught up with the manga, but this is the only time it's going to show up on the slideshow, so keep that in mind. Anyway, still loving this manga. It always makes me laugh. The humor is up my alley, and the characters have great chemistry. This volume had more of a cliffhanger than most of them, with an interesting character arc for this character. It will be interesting to see what happens with the next one. That was volume 9. Now we move into March with Gantz. That's not, I don't know why I picked that picture. Get rid of that E. Pretend that E is not there, and it's Gantz. Just base Gantz. I don't know what Gantz E is. Could never tell you. Anyway, Gantz, the manga, the entire story says, damn, what a snowball of a story. The whole time the story continued on, always one-upping itself all the way to the end of its 383 chapter run. The art was phenomenal, but was hard to understand at times. The story wasn't like the greatest thing I've ever read, but it was still a fun, satisfying one. The ending was fitting, and I was happy to see how things ended up. They answered all of my questions, which was also nice. It used its unique predicament to the fullest as well, in my opinion, with all of the reviving and whatnot. Yeah, minor spoiler, sorry. Overall good manga. Really couldn't ask for more. It's not great, but it's entertaining. I don't know what else to say. It's entertaining. It's action-packed. The story's just out balls to the wall, all over the place. It's weird. Yeah, that's Gantz. It's very quick read. Even though it's 383 chapters, most of it's just pictures you're looking at, so very quick read. Now we got Vivi Fluorite's Eye Song. This is another anime that we watch for our podcast. A lot better than I expected. I feel like the obvious comparison to Violet Evergarden, or I feel like the obvious comparison is to Violet Evergarden. It sort of does the whole story every episode thing and has a new cast each time, and I don't think it did it as well as Violet. I was still happy with the overarching plot though, and the final 4 episodes were the payoff that the series needed. I loved the twist with this person in episode 9. Fight choreography was good. Music was good. Just a solid show. I don't remember the twist was. That's how much I liked it. Violet Evergarden's still the better show though. The Last of Us HBO show. Holy cow, was this amazing. Having loved the game as much as I did, I was incredibly skeptical of the TV show, but it did it. It adapted the video game beautifully. It included new things not in the game and had small changes that worked overall for the better. Not too much that I was disappointed about though, or as well. Not a lot of zombie interactions, especially near the end. That was a disappointment. I felt that episode 7 went on a bit too long and made episode 8 feel a bit rushed. Would have loved a cliffhanger in episode 7 that set up for episode 8 with a zombie attack. Regardless, they nailed it. Any video game adaptation in the future must look back at this one if they want to make it good. This show's great. I was listening to the podcast of the people that put the show together, essentially. Like Neil Druckmann was on it, and the show runner, the person that did Chernobyl as well. I don't remember their name, but they did the podcast as well with the voice actor of Joel from the video game. Very interesting podcast, but they talk a lot about each episode and how it was made. Very cool. Very worth your time. What's not worth your time is the 100 Griffins who really love you. So I read this manga and got caught up to where what? Ooh, I can't say I got caught up. Actually, let's just read it. Alright, here we go. Perfect rom-com trash. I've been looking for something like this for a while now, and after dropping Strawberry 100% a while back, I'm glad I got to have some new trash to binge. The more I read, the less I enjoy it, though. It's still not terrible, but it's more like Fly Me to the Moon, where I really don't care about the plot. It's just nice. It's just a nice comfort read. Yeah. I love rom-com trash. It's one of my favorite genres of manga, and this was definitely one of them. However, I have an update from May 30th. It says, nah, it's trash. I dropped it at chapter 60. There's just way too much to follow. Too many main characters, constant dialogue, and I never know who's saying what. I agree. I agree with Past Self. I know the anime came out and people really like it. I don't think I'm ever going to try it. Millennium Actress. Hot damn, was this show something special. It's the first thing I've consumed by the late Satoshi Kon, and now I get why he was a revolutionary director. The main plot was a pretty simple tale, but the way he told it was incredible. It kept you on your toes trying to figure out what was real or not. But regardless if it was real or not, it all pushed the plot along, and that's amazing. You weren't left with any questions, and I was left satisfied. Great film. Not much else to say. It's phenomenal. You should watch it. It's a fun time. The Whale with the Brendan Fraser. He's the whale. I watched this film solely because I knew 2 people who watched it. One side said they really enjoyed it and even got a bit emotional. The other side said it was very bad and not worth your time. This intrigued me enough to watch it myself. Starring Brendan Fraser, it is an incredibly overweight individual who was going to die by the end of the week due to their unhealthy lifestyle. The film itself was honestly not that bad. It was a pretty solid work of tragedy. I enjoyed it, but did have some issues. Regardless, though, I definitely leaned more toward the person who enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember too much. I do agree, though, still. I look back on that movie and think it was fun. Shouldn't say fun. It's definitely a tragedy. I look back on that movie and think, yeah, that was a good entertainment. The Unbelievable Gwenpool comic series. I went into this one for the premise of it being a super fourth wall breaky kind of a comic. I was intrigued by the idea and wanted to see how they used that fact that it is a comic in the plot. It was done quite well. It had some very funny moments and was an enjoyable read from start to finish. It did have some moments of slow times, but they didn't last too long. For my first American comic, it was a lot of fun and a good read. I've never read anything else that was published in America, I guess. That was the first one. Alright, so with our anime podcast, we watch a bunch of anime throughout the seasons. This is the end of the winter season. And so you're going to have just a whole bunch of anime with some random things here and there sprinkled in. First up is Ningen Fushin, adventurers who don't believe in humanity will save the world. This one started out with a bang. I really enjoyed the first couple episodes. The plot was exciting, even though the animation was pretty bad. After the first couple episodes, though, the plot slows down a ton. I never disliked it, but some weeks were a struggle to keep watching. By the end, I was still entertained, but I would be surprised if the show never gets a season 2. I wouldn't be surprised if the show never gets a season 2, because it probably won't. Yeah. Very interesting world they set up. It's fantasy, but there's elements of, like, modern. I don't know. Alright, Mistborn Book 2, The Well of Ascension. Book 2 in the Mistborn series started out slow for me. I already liked the characters, so that wasn't the issue, and I do like a good political struggle, which leads me to believe that the opening was just simply slow. It took some time to get the ball rolling, but when it did, I enjoyed it almost as much as the first book. I adored the first book, not to diminish this one. Book 2 was really damn good too. It kept with what was expected, but also kept me on my toes. As much as I like to think that I can figure out what might happen from context clues, I just couldn't. Which isn't the same for Book 3. I could figure out things based on context clues, which was really fun. Anyway, the subtle foreshadowing is done so well, and you almost never catch it. I'd read something and be like, that will certainly become important later on. I'd usually be, I say read, but it was a listen to, audiobooks. I'd usually be right about that, but I would have forgotten my prior thoughts by the time it was reintroduced. I also enjoyed this type of an ending. It was a fake out at first. I thought it was going to end like this, but it ended like this instead to pick up for the third book. Very good one. Can't wait for the third. Revenger. Not the best show I've seen, but it was certainly unique. Very much so like the Ningen Fushin, the previous anime. I really enjoyed the start of it as it went all out, then it started to trail out. That said, the final 2 episodes were quite good. The background music was also surprisingly really good. Really did wonders for the setting the mood. I figured right so would happen in the end, something in the end. And it seems the writers figured people would too, and I guess would guess that, so they kept guessing and they changed it or something. I don't remember. I'm just really trying to not spoil anything. A good short 12 episode anime. It's okay. Urusei Yatsura 2022 remake season 1. Pretty fun show. It's weird how I've seen so many different rom-com anime / manga that going back to one of the OGs is like a breath of fresh air. Lum is a fun heroine, and Ataru is just as fun as the protagonist. I love their dynamics and the rare cute moments they have with each other. The energy for this show was completely off the walls, and I was totally here for it. This definitely makes me want to read some of Rumiko Takahashi's manga like Ranma 1/2. Side note, I did read a good chunk of Ranma 1/2. It didn't really do it as much for me as Urusei Yatsura, mainly probably because of the old art style. And Urusei Yatsura's manga does it too, but this reboot or remake has a new art style, so it looks really clean. I don't know. I love this show a lot. It's fun. Good stuff. The Ice Guy and his cool female colleague. The anime was very boring and I should have dropped it, but each time I watched it, I would get the stupidest goofy grin on my face that kept me watching, even if nothing ever happened in the plot. Less than mediocre. Not a good show. Don't watch it. Pokemon aim to be a Pokemon master. Wowza, was this fun and depressing. Seeing the original trio back together going through these last episodes was incredibly fun and sad. Very nostalgic, and in my opinion, a solid ending to the story of Ash Ketchum. Thank you, Pokemon. It's good. If you grew up watching Pokemon, then you'd probably enjoy watching this as well. Honestly, it's solid. Oh, geez. What did I just do? Where am I? I hit the space bar thinking it was going to progress the slides, but I'd clicked on my other browser. Here we go. The Angel Next Door spoils me rotten. This rom-com is pretty generic, but the ending was done well. Much to my surprise, the main duo got together in the end of the 12-episode run, which is almost unheard of in anime rom-coms. Not a spoiler, but kinda. Very wholesome with some funny, not so wholesome moments. I will never forget the dude in the comment section who had no clue. I forgot about that. Oh my gosh. Oh freak. So in the anime, the main character has a wet dream, and that's like part of the plot or whatever. But I always read the comments after the episodes. There's this dude that was just so confused on what that was. He couldn't fathom that that's what happens at times. He was just blown away, and like people in the comments were trying to explain it to him, and he just anyway, the funniest part of the whole show was the comment section, not the actual show. The magical revolution of the reincarnated princess and the genius young lady. Yep, that's a fun show. Really cute, lots of emotional and powerful characters. The animation was solid through and through. The plot definitely had some holes that I'm assuming the light novel covered, but I can forgive that. Yuffie is best girl, really taking over that protagonist power from Ain's Honest, right at the end. Good stuff all around. Yeah, it's a really cute show. I really liked it. Giant Beasts of Ours. Honestly, I feel like I've given the show a bad rap in my own head. I won't deny that I sort of stopped caring much about it halfway through, but now that I finished it, I'm happy that I did. It's not bad by any means, but if it came out in a different season of anime, then I'm not sure I would have had as high of thoughts. The cast was fun, and the plot was a bit convoluted. It reminds me heavily of a SNES era RPG. I'd watch the season 2, especially with that huge cliffhanger they left on. And it's a fun show. Honestly, the whole season as a whole was pretty lackluster for anime. So even though this show was relatively mid, it still kind of stood up above the others. High card. If it wasn't for the Ash finale and Pokemon, the show would have been my number 1 for this season. I kind of cheated by putting the Pokemon one in, but anyway. In all actuality, it was no doubt the best show of the season. So much fun, the cast was all great, the chemistry was great, the humor was great, and the action was great, and even the plot was great. No complaints. Not the best thing I've ever seen, but regardless, it was good. I love this show and can't wait for a season 2 that was announced at the end of the final episode. It's criminal that no one is really talking about the show, especially in the sea of sevens that this season of anime was. Season 2 is airing right now as I'm recording this. I've seen the first 2 episodes, and it is not hitting me as much as season 1 did, so I'm not sure why, but maybe going forward it will. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. This was a fun little light novel game, a freebie from Sega for April Fools, but you can tell that there's effort that went into making it. A nice little murder mystery set in the Sonic universe, and even though I'm not the biggest Sonic fan around, I still had quite a fun time with it. I also got the murderer right. Easy peasy. I don't remember who did it. It's been too long. Now we're in we're in April. This is April now. The Chronicles of Riddick. My dad loves this show. It took me this long to watch it, even after how many times I've heard him say he loves it. I still do to this day. Every time it's brought up, he talks about how much he enjoys it. Well, it was pretty fun. Honestly, I didn't really care for Riddick's character, but it was fun to see how he saved the day when he really wasn't even trying to do that. He was just trying to save Kiera, which he failed at. Oh, spoiler, shoot, sorry. Honestly, it was pretty unique, and the world building was great. I love that the ending wasn't your typical action movie, too. Not a bad show by any means. Lots of enjoyment to be had. Not sure if I'd get into the series, though. Especially because my dad has said that this was the best movie, and the other ones weren't as good. Plastic Memories is one of the watch-along anime we did for the podcast. Pretty dang good anime, one that is meant to make you cry. Other shows that are very similar, like Angel Beats, hit harder for me, but there was a lot to like in this one. I wish they would have explored the AI stuff a bit more, but it's fine that they didn't. Great show to hit you right in the feels. Yeah, it was cute. Super Mario Bros. The movie. Yeah, this was indeed a movie about Mario. The editing was as fast as its pacing, and at times was hard to watch. None of the characters really had anything interesting about them. They were all the definition of one note. Yet it was still very entertaining. My favorite parts were all the musical Easter eggs, like Luigi's ringtone being the GameCube startup sound. I will probably never watch this movie again. It was the definition of mediocre. I agree. I still haven't watched it again, and I probably never will, but it was pretty mediocre. I'd watch a sequel, though. Suzume, Makoto Shinkai's newest film. Looks just as good and better than you'd imagine. No complaints on the animation. It looked incredible. The plot was good, better than Weathering with You, but it had some rough edges. The pacing was rough at times, having multiple big climaxes. Really weird. There was like a really big climax moment, and I was just like, oh, we're done? No, we're not done. The Tokyo scene was more of a spectacle than the final scene, which was strange to me. I felt the relationship between the main two was done way too quickly as well. They had cute moments, but it didn't feel as as genuine as a relationship in Your Name. The bootstrap paradox was Chef's kiss, and using the imagery of the boots pulled it all together. I really did enjoy that. That was fun. A great movie. It's just not as good as Your Name, in my opinion. Makoto Shinkai will never escape that film. True. I haven't seen anything else from Makoto Shinkai except for this, Your Name, and Weathering with You. Your Name, Suzume, Weathering with You, that's the order I'd put them in. I'd like to watch 5 centimeters per second, and I feel like... No, he didn't do this movie. I was thinking he might have done your Pancreas movie. Pancreas. I want to eat your pancreas, but he didn't do that. He did have 5 centimeters per second. I might watch that this weekend. RWBY Volume 9. Preface, I completely forgot I had watched this when I was putting together the slideshow. RWBY is back again with a fresh season of trash. I know it really isn't that good of a show, yet I can't not watch it when it comes out. It's nostalgic and a bit of a comfort show for me, and this season was no different. This time RWBY actually got so much needed character development, and my favorite ship of Weiss and Jean saw a bit of moments. All in all, not a bad season, definitely better than some of the past ones. Agree, yeah, season 8 was pretty bad, but season 9's okay. Still not a great show. Tactopi Destiny was another watch-along one. The show was incredibly average. Its highs were great and its lows were boring. The animation was great and the story was lacking. If they had written the characters just a smidge better, then the whole show would have been far better. They were close, just not close enough. The animation was really cool though, and I liked all the character designs. They were fun. Xenoblade Chronicles 3: The Future Redeemed, or just Future Redeemed. What a great ending to the Xenoblade trilogy. The other add-on stories for the prior games were mostly just for their base game stories, but Future Redeemed felt like a true sequel to the trilogy as a whole. So many fun callbacks and amazing lore revelations. I loved every minute of it. I'm pretty sad that this was it for the trilogy, and sad that I won't get anything new for some time. Here's hoping that for a Xenoblade Saga... Xenoblade Saga? Oh, that must have been what I was going to call a remake of a Xenosaga. Interesting. Regardless, Future Redeemed may have some flaws here and there, but it really cemented Xenoblade 3 as my favorite game of all time. Phenomenal cap to this big story arc, and a small peek into the future. This character is a Beyblade. Very true. Now we're in May. We did it. We're in May. It's taking a very long time to get there. Sorry about that, but here we are. May. Video Game High School, the web series. I was incredibly surprised and pleased to see that this show held up as much as I had hoped it would. The humor still hits, and sometimes I catch new jokes I didn't back when I'd first watched the series. The emotional moments hit even harder, which I'm sure is due in part because I've simply gotten older and can grasp some of the hard concepts that I didn't quite understand back then. The acting was fairly amateur, but each actor/actress still exceeds what should have been made for a simple YouTube web series. Did a video on this show. Super good. Check out the video. I talk more in depth. Kids on the Slope, another watch-along anime. It fakes you out as a show that you think you can predict the ending from the start, but it has a slightly more subtle ending than you would expect. The characters were well written and had some fun dynamics. I got the impression, though, that this story was intended to be a BL. It really didn't feel like the relationship between the male and the female leads were that strong, and the two boys had a much more deeper relationship. It's from the mid-2000s, which may be part of why the assumed hesitation to make it a BL. Regardless, it was a fairly fun story. Yeah, it could have been a BL, and I think it would have been better. Sweat and Soap. This manga's fun. I enjoyed my fair share of trash romance or power fantasy stories, but every now and then I get to consume something that is actually just really damn good. This manga was spectacular at showing all sides of a relationship that was just beginning. Starting with the leads getting together is always a win in my book. And Sweat and Soap portrays that blooming relationship far better than most. It portrays a mature relationship, and I'm here for it. I didn't feel that it dragged, and that is partly due to it being a shorter story. I imagine that if they made it any longer, then it might have felt slow-paced, so I'm glad they didn't. Would highly recommend it to anyone who wants a wholesome and realistic story about two people falling in love and dealing with there being someone new in their lives. Really cute. There's a weird anime-esque thingy to it, though, with the sweat and soap aspect of it, but regardless, the story's cute. This one's not. Good night, Poon Poon. Poon Poon is probably one of the hardest things I've ever read. It's utterly hopeless and makes you feel that way too. The gradual and painful fall into depression of Poon Poon is shown in striking detail, showing that even though there are things here and there that are happy, it often doesn't do enough to save a person's mind. I love that it shows people healing too. It shows that people can help others through their ruts in their life. I wish we would have gotten to see Poon Poon's redemption rather than his lowest point, followed by subtle realizations, but regardless, I was satisfied with the ending. I was happy to see Poon Poon in a far better place than he'd ever been, and that people who helped him through it, all were some of the people he'd been with for quite some time. Unlike the previous entry, Sweat and Soap, I don't think I could recommend this to anyone due to the mental state it puts the reader in. But I will say that it was good, and if anything, it was brutally honest. Not much else to say about that. Black Klansman. Pretty good historical fiction. Very entertaining and portrayed both sides of the rights movement. I'm glad that it showed how evil some of the people were and can still be today. Pretty darn funny too. Some hilarious moments and was really just written and acted incredibly well. This was another one of those movie watch-alongs with my buddies. Fun show. Honestly, pretty solid. Would recommend this one. Unless you don't like a lot, like bad language. It's got a lot of it. Tokyo Revengers Season 2. Now, this was not an anime watch-along or anything. This was just me and my buddies. This is the show we watch. This is I say, this show is pretty dumb at times. I like it, honestly, but it's sort of a trash shonen that I keep watching literally only because I watch it with my buddies. It's got cool time travel elements, but I feel they're underutilized. Author just wanted a future problem that can only be solved in the past, so everything takes place in the past, and you only get to go to the future to find out what the new problem is. Rinse and repeat. We have not even watched the newest season because it's just gone so downhill. It's gotten so downhill from where it was. 365 Days to the Wedding manga. This is a banger. Fresh off of Sweat and Soap, I read this manga on a whim, thinking it might be sort of like a Nisekoi. And while it does have some Nisekoi elements, it's actually more of a Sweat and Soap / Wotakoi manga. It's an adult relationship with some unique characters. My favorite part is that the main two have their hobbies / things that they like that they aren't willing to stop or give up just to find someone and get married. They are content being alone in life, but when someone comes along who's okay with their partner having their thing, they fall for each other. I freaking loved it so much and binged it way too fast. Thankfully, it's not finished, and I more so just caught up on it. Most recent chapter as of right now is 106. Update from June 17th. Well, with the release of chapter 110, it's now finished. I only had 4 chapters left. Bit of a shame I only had 4 more chapters to go from when I got caught up, but all of my thoughts and points still stand. I love the whole thing. Really solid and cute manga. Would recommend if you like adult relationships. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This movie is probably one of the last Marvel movies I will see in quite some time. There's only one other on this list. Yeah, one other on this list. I love Guardians, so I was very excited for this one. After seeing it, I would say it's on par with the second. It had its moments, but its lows were pretty bad in my opinion. The villain was terrible. I liked the villainous things he was doing, but he didn't have a good reason for doing anything he was doing. The movie overall was much darker in tone than the prior two. It felt strange for the Guardians to be so dark. It worked, but it was a bit hard to watch at times as a result. Good movie to end most of the characters' stories, though. I enjoyed it as the end of a trilogy, and final note, I hate that you have to know what happened to Another final note is that I hate that you have to know what happened in Endgame to understand the Gamora plot. I like Gamora being there, but I hate the connectivity of Marvel at times. Yeah, this show would have been a lot better if they didn't have to work with Marvel's connectivity. Regardless, still not bad. Mistborn, the Hero of Ages, the third in the trilogy. Incredibly solid ending to the trilogy. I love how many things have relevance and come back even all the way back from the first book. The ending was sad yet satisfying. I love how many rules are set in the world too. Everything that happens is understandable and nothing happens by pure chance. I went through this one much slower than the last two. Lots of things got in the way, and I also was somewhat dreading getting to the end of the trilogy. I'm really happy though with the series. Brandon Sanderson may be a very basic with his descriptions of things and emotions, but he did a phenomenal job with the world and how everything interacts. Nothing felt dumb or that it shouldn't have happened. Everything makes sense and I love it. The cast was quite likable, and when I didn't like them, they still had charms and redemptions that made me like them. I absolutely loved this series and I'm excited for the next part. There's 4 more books in the Mistborn series as of this point, but they're set in an entirely different era. We'll get to a couple of those. Star Trek 2009. Good stuff. J.J. Abrams can make movies sometimes, and when he does, sometimes they are really good. The little twists and parallels are very fun, and your brain does the thing where it thinks about what's happening. Don't know what that means, Cole. Not a Star Trek fan by any means, but if you remotely like sci-fi and haven't seen this one, you need to watch it. In between Star Trek and Pico Park, I've got Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, Volume 10. Once again, this manga slaps, and I'm all here for it. Lots of fun, some fun character growth. I was hesitant at first at expanding the main cast, but after a bit, I was completely fine with it. Okay, Pico Park. Fun with friends. I'm sure it's fun by yourself, but I probably wouldn't play it without friends. Like those Mario games you can play with friends, but in the format of a 2007 phone game, like the ones you can like pick up your friends and throw them and stuff in Mario. It gets It gets pretty hectic with more people in the game, and it goes up to 8, and we had 6 at one point. So much yelling and laughing. Played just under 3 hours and beat all the levels. Lots of fun was had. Well worth the $5. Alright, now we're into June. And the only other Marvel movie on the list, which is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which doesn't really feel like a Marvel movie, even though it is, technically. Awesome show, great follow-up to the Spider-Verse, and tells a much more engaging story and exciting story. This is what a superhero movie can and should be. The animation was on point, and they used it to its full extent, showing shots that are doable in live action but feel uncanny if not animated. Leaving on a cliffhanger was also a surprise, but a welcomed one. So happy they're trying new things every now and then in films. Starship Troopers Extermination. Pretty fun little game, especially with friends. Can get very hectic at times, which I enjoyed, but honestly, I don't know how much I'd care if it weren't for playing with friends. Reminds me of an RTS it reminds me of an RTS, but you are the workers in the RTS gathering the resources. Man, I struggled saying that. Overall fun and should provide more fun in the future as it is an early access game. We've never played it again. Transformers Rise of the Beast. Classic big robots fighting. What's there not to like? I would love to see the choreography improve in the future movies, but really they did a pretty good job as it stands, making some really cool action-packed scenes. Some things were pretty dumb, but I can give it a pass. Rick and Morty Season 6. It's more Rick and Morty. Dumb humor with some witty and interesting things thrown in. Better than last season for sure, with some standout episodes like the Piss Man. I don't even remember what that is. Some episodes were meh, but for the most part, they were all fun and had good moments. Idiocracy. This movie was written by Mike Judge, famous from King of the Hill and Office Space. I went into it expecting to enjoy it and had some good laughs. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a terrible movie either. I just had heard many good things and loved King of the Hill, so my hopes were pretty high. All in all, it was an entertaining movie with a unique world, even if it was pretty stupid. Pun intended. The Dangers in My Heart, anime and manga. So I watched this one for the anime season, and then the manga is one I picked up right after because I liked the anime so much. I went into this anime expecting it to drop it, but it snuck its way into being one of my favorites for the season. There is such great chemistry between the two mains, and it was so much fun to watch. I honestly couldn't get enough of it, so I started reading the manga. The character arcs are well done, and I'd love to see the growth in both the main boy and the main girl. I love to see the growth, not I'd love to. As I said prior, I love this series so much that I had to read the manga as well, which I caught up on chapter 122 at the moment. Honestly, the anime is done better, mostly because they were able to take the bonus Twitter chapters and adapt those as well. I vaguely remember what those are, as well as the normal main chapters. One example would be how Ichikawa sends a picture of a snow landscape while talking to Yamada on the phone. That wasn't in the manga. The scene was there earlier, just without some of the extra mush that made the anime scene that much better. Regardless, you can't go wrong with this series if you want to have a fun and wholesome time, with some middle school humor from time to time. that I loved in parentheses. Yeah, watch the anime. Season 2 is airing right now, so if you are remotely interested, I would just check out the anime. Konosuba, an explosion on this wonderful world. The prequel to Konosuba starring Megumin. I had moderate hopes going to this one, and those hopes were met. I meant it was more Konosuba. It was more Konosuba, just without the main part of Konosuba. Some parts were really funny, but for the most part, the show was kinda eh. Honestly, if I didn't know Megumin, I probably would have dropped this one. Like, it wasn't bad by any means, it's just you can tell Megumin is a supporting character that's trying to fill the shoes of a main character. She really doesn't have that much of an arc, and the way she does grow is kind of forced. Once again, not bad, just not as good as Konosuba proper. I wouldn't start here if you wanted to get into the series. My love story with Yamada-kun at level 999. Really cute story with older characters. It's always a big up for me when the cast is older than high school age. Honestly, it's a bit of a hybrid, but we're close, because the boy is actually still like a senior in high school and the girl's like college age. I loved that it wasn't just a romance story, but also a friend story dealing with the group's guild in their game they play, and the diversity that they all had. It was a fun watch, all of the interactions as well. Sometimes it dragged a bit, but for the most part, I enjoyed each episode as they came out. Demon Slayer Season 3. What can I say? It's more Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer really doesn't miss. It's never the greatest thing ever made, but it's always a very enjoyable show to watch. Knowing what happens in the manga does not affect my enjoyment of this series either. Goes to show how good of an adaptation this really is. It steps up to the bar for shonen. It steps the bar up for shonen adaptations. Ufotable is great, and I'll always be interested in whatever they make. Oshi no Ko, literally one of my favorite series out there. Aka Akasaka is a genius, and I'm glad that the animation studio took this one seriously. They pulled out all the stops and did a Demon Slayer level adaptation. The story is great, the acting was incredible, the animation didn't miss, literally a 10 out of 10 show. Having the first episode be roughly an hour long was definitely the right move that I figured would probably happen if they ever animated the series. Glad that they did, and it obviously paid off with how popular it has gotten in just 12 episodes. Having episodes released the same day chapters came out was another great thing. Similar to when Chainsaw Man was releasing. Loved me some Oshi no Ko Wednesdays. Yeah, I loved it. Watching the episode and then I'd read the chapter and then later in the day I would watch the episode. Super fun. Ao Haru Ride. I read this manga during the time when we didn't have a house yet. That definitely helped me not only get through it, but enjoy it more. It was a bit of an escape from everything else, and I appreciated that. Was it a good manga? It wasn't bad, and definitely had some really great moments and some super solid characters, especially the antagonist. I do not remember the antagonist. That's how good they were. It was a very safe love story where you know that in the end, everything will work out. There wasn't a lot of spice, and you honestly knew what you were getting yourself into. Regardless, I enjoyed it a lot and had a lot of fun reading it. I remember very little about this series. Like I said, I did read this during the time when we were in our moving phase, where we were moving from our old house to the one I'm currently in right now, and we didn't have a house, and yeah, so my mind was pretty jumbled back then, so maybe that's probably why I don't remember too much about it. All right, July. This is probably like July 1st when I watched this or finished this. I got a cheat skill in another world and became unrivaled in the real world too. This is definitely a show that exists. It was pretty bad overall. The animation was subpar, and there was even an episode where they showed still background images while people had serious conversations verbally but off screen. The plot was absurd. Everything good that could ever happen to a person kinda shows up with the cherry on top, being that the main character was just an overly good and kind person. Girls constantly falling for him, instant popularity, incredible fit, stupidly handsome, the works. I honestly kept watching it because I wanted to see how they'd stop the previous ridiculous thing that would happen to the main character that would increase all the prior things I mentioned. The definition of the car crash that you just can't look away from. Really bad show. For some reason it's getting a season 2 or something else. Heavenly Delusions, or Tengoku Daimakyo. This one was fun. while it could have been depressing while it could be depressing at times, it had a great story. The world is very interesting, and the way it was written kept you guessing as to what might happen next, and what could some of the answers be that you've been looking for the whole season. It does not necessarily leave on a cliffhanger, but I'd be surprised if they didn't do a season 2. It wasn't my favorite of the season, but the movie-like animation, mystery, and the fact that Thane hypes up the manga keeps me going. Fun show. It's very unique and interesting. The animation's probably one of the best of the whole year, probably. It was July 4th, so of course I watched Independence Day with my family. This one's a classic, super patriotic. They cranked the America up to 11. It's by no means a must-watch before you die movie, but it's a fun ride from start to end. Some weird pacing at times, but it's still a great film, especially when it's the 4th of July. This time around, I also noticed the super obvious references to Star Wars. Like, literally, the opening shot is practically one for one with the opening of A New Hope. The whole ending sequence is also very Return of the Jedi. It really feels like Star Wars, just with only one side having advanced technology. Pretty interesting to look at it from that viewpoint. Regardless, I loved it all again. Yep. Oh. Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is probably one of the best video games I've ever played. I believe those are the same words I thought when I finished Breath of the Wild in 2017. Tears of the Kingdom surpasses even that. It got me so involved in the world that I was excited to do side quests and continually explore the world. I never did much of that in Breath of the Wild, yet here I did. Tears of the Kingdom isn't a perfect game by any means. Plenty of things that they could have done differently or better, but the stuff they got right, they did so well that anyone who attempts to measure up will almost certainly fail. The creation tools in Sandbox went above and beyond. Truly, in my opinion, this is the best video game ever made. Not my favorite, just the best one made that I have played. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Intergrade, or the DLC, whatever you want to call it. Specifically, I played the DLC. I've already beat the base game. This is a fun dose of Final Fantasy VII Remake that reminded me just how much fun the game is. You play as Yuffie, and the events of Intergrade take place during the main story, in tandem. I was surprised that I found myself engaged in the plot as much as I was for a simple 5-hour experience. Final Fantasy VII Remake is still dang good. The combat is super fun, mixing turn-based with hack and slash. And the game looks absolutely stunning. I played this in anticipation for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth this year, in a month from now, essentially. And now I'm even more excited for when that game finally releases. Mistborn, the Alloy of Law. Man, this series is so much fun. After the ending of the prior era, I wasn't sure how good it was going to be to keep going with new characters, but it went great. It's a testament to the world building set up in the prior 3 novels, as well as the additions/changes, without going into spoilers, that were done to the power system. It's also so much fun to see the power system being used in a more modern setting. The era feels more like a Western rather than a fantasy. It took me a bit to really care for the characters, but after I warmed up to them, it was great. I started this before moving and having a job where I could easily listen to audiobooks, so it took me a bit to get through this one, because when I moved I didn't really listen to audiobooks as much. Where was I? As well as the frequency that I listened to the book. A bit rough going through it speed-wise, and I feel a bit bad for the novel because I think it was really good. Regardless, I'm happy I was able to get through it even with the setbacks. This was some S-tier garbage. Really this girlfriend, right up my alley with my history of loving absolute trash harem manga. Easily pick for a best girl, check. Spicy story beats to keep the chapters turning, check. Lewd, check. To be honest, I did enjoy the meta commentary on the harem genre. I would have liked it to have been explored even more, though. The second to final arc was really good, in my opinion. It had an expected outcome, as did the story as a whole, and I wish that they would have run with it a bit longer than giving up after a short couple of chapters. Still fun, though. I thoroughly got my enjoyment out of this garbage. Shino is best girl. One Punch Man Season 1. This is a watch-along anime. This is a rewatch where there definitely were some times I slogged through, but all in all, Season 1 of the show is honestly superb. It's a phenomenal one-season show if you wanted. It's no wonder most people don't like Season 2 as much. It leaves you on a cliffhanger, while Season 1 feels like a full, complete show from start to finish, with honestly a satisfying ending. Loved the meta commentary on shonen anime, super well done. The art style from Murata's is also leagues above most, accompanied by the masterful storytelling of one. It really is a great show. Also, episode 1 is phenomenal, one of the best episode 1s of all anime. Now we're in August. This is another watch-along anime. We've got Sword Art Online, Alternative Gun Gale Online. Bunch of random BS, the anime Battle Royale edition. Honestly, this show is a ton of fun. If you remotely enjoyed the Gun Gale arc in Sword Art Online, you'd really like this show. If you just like Battle Royale games, then you'd like this show. Lastly, if you like cute girls going psycho with guns, you'd like this show. Not a lot to dislike with this one. The subs were good back then when I watched them 5 years ago, and the dub is just as good in my opinion. An incredibly predictable show with the right amount of fun anime BS to keep it all entertaining. Good job, anime. You did it. Star Trek Into Darkness. This was a fun movie. Was it memorable? Not particularly. I definitely enjoyed it, and it was fun to watch Kirk and Spock's relationship grow. Also, this one had a really hot blonde girl. She was gorgeous. I don't know what her name is, but man, she's hot. It's on par with the first one for sure. Worse in some places, but better in others. I definitely think that Kirk grew more as a character in this as well as Spock than in the first one. And that said, it was more of the same, yet this movie wasn't as big as an offender of that as the next one was. Which is right now, Star Trek Beyond. This was indeed a Star Trek. In fact, you could say that it was the most Star Trek of these movies. It wasn't bad, and it wasn't great. It wasn't bad, and it was great to see more of the universe than mostly just space fights. That said, it was the most predictable of the three. It basically was its own plot, but with a lot of two story beats. You know the ending from the start, and it all honestly was just meh. No hot blonde chick either, which was a big misstep in my opinion. Paranoia Agent by Satoshi Kon. Satoshi Kon's only television series. I can see the direction, but this is a watch-along, by the way. I can see the direction, but I don't really think it landed. It felt like so many different ideas mashed into one. It seemed like there was enough material for at least 7 standalone films, or at least short films. As a whole story, I'm not sure it works that well. The pacing is rough and takes way too long to get the resolution to the point that I stopped caring about the main plot. It was a good series and definitely worth the watch, if not for the side stories alone. But I don't think I'd ever rewatch it. I loved Millennium Actress, but this feels like it tried to do way too much. It's still really good, but I think Millennium Actress was better because it's a more condensed package I'm judging Satoshi Kon stuff at this point, not anything else. I've not seen anything else of his. I'm going to watch Perfect Blue at some point. I have that movie, so that'll be my next watch of his. After this, it's Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead, Volume 11. So, I don't have a picture for that. Sorry about that. This volume was even better than the last. If I had any qualms about a new party member from last time, this volume got rid of them entirely. This time, the cliffhanger was so much that I decided to say screw it and get caught up on the manga as a whole. I gotta say that this was the right move too. Of all the times in the manga to binge, this was probably it. Still loving the manga and glad it keeps going. Super, super great arc. Phenomenal. Love it. Next up is Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. Watching this was a long time coming. I honestly don't know how I went as long as I did without watching this movie. Well, I finally did, and I watched the extended version as well. I really enjoyed it, and it surprisingly kept my attention the whole time through, around 3 hours or so. The sets are incredible, the movie magic is amazing, and it straight up feels legitimate. One of the things that you can really tell that the people who made it actually cared about making it. I will say, I thought the magic system was weak. I could have used more spectacle than two old dudes staring at each other with constipated looks on their faces, waving sticks around. I plan to watch the other two soon, so we'll see when that happens. Spoiler alert, that soon didn't happen. I have not watched the other two yet. At this point, I may just rewatch the first one again and then the next two. Yeah, this one. Chain Soldier. Surprisingly, the story's not bad, but let's be honest, I watched it because of the Gigic video. Now we're in September. First thing I did in September was watch the One Piece live-action television show. Having read a good portion of the manga, I went to this live-action adaptation with some skepticism. I was pleasantly surprised to the point that I watched the whole thing in the span of 2 days. They did an excellent job adapting the story for the medium, while also making it a unique experience separate from the original. The creative liberties taken were good, and I'm glad that even though they had almost every weeb breathing down their neck, they did take those liberties because they worked for the best. I may even be so bold as to say that this is the best way to experience the One Piece story. I may just hold on to that statement if they continue adapting the series in the future. They also announced the One Piece remake anime, so that may be the best one after this, so who knows. Painkiller, television show from Netflix. This show was recommended to me by my dad and my brother. It was very gripping and had me hooked the whole time. The multiple stories told throughout really made every aspect of the main story even stronger. It was a tragedy, and they outright tell you from the start that you basically won't be getting a happy ending. Things like this hit close to home because most people in the United States had some relation to OxyContin, so to see how it came about was a very heavy story. Crazy to think how these people are basically just drug dealers, but in a legal way. Breaking Bad, but going about it in a legal way. Angels of Death. This is another watch-along show. Wow, was this a dumper. I normally enjoy the idea of the death game story, but this one just sucks. The characters are trash, the plot is pretty dumb, and the motivations are pretty useless. I'll admit that there were some interesting things, but those interesting things do not outweigh how dumb the rest of the story was. Rachel is a terrible main character. Her motivation is not having motivation. It's so bad and a terrible slog to watch. Definitely don't recommend this one to anyone. The Graduate. This is a rewatch for me. This movie is spectacular. The cinematography is great, and the storytelling is just as good. It's crazy that this movie is from the 60s. You'd never guess. There are times that it feels like it, but the plot could be something released today. The story of a kid not knowing what to do in his life also is incredibly relatable and sells the character. Good stuff. Most people should watch this movie at least once. Uncle from Another World. This is an anime watch-along, and it was another rewatch for me as well. Still really good and fun though too. I watched the dub this time though, and I can honestly say that this is one of the only shows that I think that the sub was far better. While the dub did get better as the actors fell into their roles, the sub was just overall better and good from the start. Regardless, the story is still fun and hilarious at times. Definitely a good time. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC Part 1, The Teal Mask. It was more Pokemon. I really don't know if I need to say more. I liked it. It definitely had most of the same flaws as the base game. The story was interesting, which was nice. The Legends Arceus side quest was cool and full of fan service. I think Game Freak does better with these condensed open worlds rather than a full one. That said, this one wasn't great, but passable if you like Scarlet and Violet. You'll like this. If not, you won't like this. Spoiler alert, Part 2 is a lot better, and really makes Part 1 better too. Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout. The animation. It's from a video game that they animated. The anime is an adaptation. Yeah, this anime is an adaptation of a video game that I haven't played. That said, I feel like that it's probably a pretty solid adaptation of the source material. After looking up minor things about the game, it seems to use the same music, story, structure, and has plenty of game fan service from what I can tell. It also has Ryza's thighs, which were great. Honestly, I've never seen a show's animation be so horny, but the actual story is not in any way, shape, or form. Not one person does the anime thing by being horny. To top that off, they even did a beach episode, and there was none of that. Thighs aside, this anime was very comfy. It has stunning visuals, fun music, and a decent enough fantasy plot to keep me entertained. Call of Duty Black Ops. I'm not completely sure, but I think the one and only time I ever played through this game was the launch week back in 2010. Well, 13 years later, I think it still holds up quite well. I'd love an updated version of this game, like with the Modern Warfare 2 remastered, but regardless, it's still quite fun with some interesting and unique things done. I think they portrayed the Fight Club aspects of the game, and the hallucinations were great. Oh, I should have said that I think they portrayed the Fight Club aspects good. I didn't say that. After all these years, it was always interesting for me to go back and play the game. Goodness. Where was I? After all these years, it's always interesting for me to go back and play the game I played as a teenager. I noticed far more than I ever did back then, like the shortcuts the devs took when making it. Regardless, it's still Call of Duty and plays like Call of Duty. Pretty fun. On a final note, the final shot of the game is completely ridiculous with the boats and planes and all that. On that note, the very end of the game is also pretty bad. The build-up is really damn good, but the payoff is meh. I made a video about Black Ops. You're gonna hear me talk about more Black Ops stuff in that little bit. Watch my video too. Liar Liar Anime. What a stinker of a show. Started out very interesting and I was very intrigued, but it kept falling. With each game, you realize that it never matters. They play games in the show, and that's the whole thing. With each game, you realize it never really matters what the rules are, because MC is just going to do some BS to bypass them anyway. That means the half of the episode they took to explain the rules was just wasted time anyway. Wouldn't recommend unless you enjoy garbage. The positives were the cute girls and the intro slaps hard. True, the intro was phenomenal, and the girls are cute. Black Ops 2. Fresh off the heels of Black Ops 1, I jumped right into the second game. Having only played the first 1.5 missions before, this was pretty much all new. I knew going in that there were alternate endings, so that was fun to see. The intro to the game is actually really bad, and I don't blame my teenage self for dropping the game back then. The rest of the game is your standard Call of Duty with some interesting and fun gimmicks. It was fun to see the story unfold with how I chose to do things. I basically got the worst ending, but it's all good. Now on to Black Ops 3. Mushoku Tensei Season 2, Part 1, to the anime. Peak Fiction is back for another season of beautiful animation. Jokes aside, this series is without a doubt one of my favorites of all time. Having read the light novel prior, it's fun to see how things are changed or are the same. Having Sylphie... spoilers. Here we go. The music was great. The art was great. Really don't have any complaints. This is just a good story, and I love every minute of it. Mistborn, Shadows of Self. Another book in the Mistborn series, and this one ends on a pretty heavy note. In hindsight, the whole story is sort of depressing and only goes on and on. It's a dang good one, though. Some fun fan service for the original trilogy as well, and more expansion of the world. Surprisingly, the bulk of the story is told during a single night. Looking back, it's pretty crazy that they did as much as they did in one night. But it still makes sense and works well. Very fun, and I'm looking forward to the next one that hopefully gets happier. BoJack Horseman Season 1. This was nothing like what I expected. Honestly, I went in with too high of expectations based on all the praise I've seen for over the years. By no means is it a bad show. I actually enjoyed it. It just didn't live up to the hype, so I do plan on watching more though, so maybe it only gets better. I do like the premise though of having animals integrated into the world. And having animals integrated into the world was unique and made for some very fun on the nose funny jokes. Sometimes my writing's terrible. Overall good show. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't have finished it. The Boys Season 1. Holy cow, is this a riveting show. It's been a while since I've been this glued to a screen. So much so that I finished the whole thing in 2 days. I guess the last time I did this was One Piece, right? It's got that modern writing that I really love, wrapped up with that solid keeps you wanting more superhero deconstructions are a ton of fun and usually make for an incredibly gripping story. I love how this one worked as well and can't wait to watch more. Same heavy themes as Invincible, but it goes about things in a much darker way. Invincible can do some incredible things, but The Boys can't because it's animated. But I think I enjoyed this one better. It's the type of a show where you just can't not root for the bad guy. It helps that there are basically no good guys in the show. Players is a TV show. It's about a fake mockumentary of League of Legends players. Kind of funny. Really interesting look at the world of competitive esports. I really enjoyed it. I pretty much hated the main character the whole time. He was always a dick, basically always looking for every opportunity to be a dick. You learn why he's that way, and even after he gets over it, he's still a bit of a dick. The other main character is also annoying too. Like, he started so many problems just because he wouldn't say a word. When he finally does start talking, they start winning. Nightfall was the best character. I really liked the dude. Overall, though, it was still a ton of fun to watch and an easy watch. Ending sort of sucked, though. I think they might have been trying to pull for a season 2, but it probably won't ever happen again. Yeah. Rent-A-Girlfriend Season 3 anime. Here we go. Rent-A-Girlfriend's peak. This is it. The best the show gets. Going past the joke, yeah, this season is definitely my favorite part about the Rent-A-Girlfriend story as a whole. The payoff is great, but could have been better. But for real, I enjoyed it a bunch. Probably one of my favorite anime for the season. I don't know what else to say. I think the characters are great, actually, and this season really shows that. It only drags on from here. Real talk, if you ever wanted to get into Rent-A-Girlfriend for some crazy reason, just watch up to season 3 and then call that the ending. Then you'd be happy, really happy probably. Now we move into October. Spy Classroom Season 2. This show is very mediocre, like it's really down the middle. The lows are low and very boring, and the highs are a lot of fun. You can get some pretty funny moments and some super cool action scenes, but if you don't care about the plot for a given arc, it's just not great. Was it worth watching? I watched the whole thing and I don't even know if I can answer that. The Boys Season 2. I won't lie, I definitely liked the first season better. Not to say that this was bad in any way, I just think everything felt more dire in the first season. Every action had a consequence, and in Season 2, it seemed like the consequences weren't really there. I still really enjoyed the season, though. There were a ton of really good moments, and it seemed like it's set up for Season 3 to hopefully be an absolute banger. I'm also hoping the Fresca thing keeps going. It didn't. Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Wow, this game sucked. It blows my mind how bad this game was when the first 2 Black Ops games were so good. Like, yes, it definitely is Call of Duty and plays like one too, but there was clearly not as much care put into the campaign as the previous 2 in the series. Lots of weird choices like AI being incredibly dumb and, well, I don't know if that was a choice, just a lack of caring. And then when they see you, they don't miss a shot. Perks that let you do things like pick up guns off the ground and wall run. I didn't even realize they were perks till the second to last mission. I'm pretty sure the game told me that they were perks, but I feel like it's an understandable oversight on my part that the features previously always available in the series were locked behind a perk. The story was a bit pretentious in my opinion. They definitely thought it was better than it actually was. The idea was interesting, but the delivery was botched in my opinion. And the dialogue was bad. I got soft locked once, almost twice, and it just wasn't fun. There were so many times that I yelled, "Why can't I do the cool action movie thing?" They let all the AI do all the cool things, and when my character did the cool things, I wasn't in control. Okay, rant over. Just watch my Black Ops 3 video, or my Black Ops series video. Papers, Please. After owning this game for almost 10 years, I bring it up in a conversation with a friend and end up getting farther in it than I ever have. I got an ending where I died. This game is crazy, like it snowballs so fast. One moment you only have to look at one thing, next thing you're trying to keep track of 50 different things at once. Really unique and very interesting, love the concept, there was definitely a reason it blew up on YouTube. Kaguya-sama Love is War Season 3. I just wanted to watch the dub. I didn't know I was gonna get a whole new experience. The dub for Kaguya has always been good, but I honestly think that the best way to watch this show is to watch both dubbed and subbed. You get new jokes and new interpretations for story beats as a result. It's still really damn funny, and everyone should see this anime at least once. Best moment was when they are parodying Aha's Take On Me, only this time in the dub, they straight up just quoted the song instead of alluding to it in the sub. Phenomenal show. There will probably be another listing for the movie episodes here on. There will be. I watched those dubbed too, that's why. High School Musical 1, 2, and 3. I watch these with my buddies. It's definitely still High School Musical. The songs are fun, the plot is basic, and the plot holes are egregious, but you look past them because you know what you're watching. This is number 2. It was more High School Musical. It's a good nostalgic time. Only thing I have to say is that it's such a stupid plot point that Troy gets punished for all of his success. So dumb. I agree. Very, very dumb. High School Musical 3. Honestly, yeah, that's the worst part about 2. That he gets punished for all of his good things. Anyway, I could go on a whole rant. Number 3, the plot in this one is my overall favorite, but the first one is still better. The first one is still a better movie. It surprisingly shows how Troy's character arc comes to a close, and is actually pretty dang good. Seriously, huge ups for it, especially with the target audience being kids going through the same ages as the main cast. Really cool message about choosing what you want to do with your life. Overall, I liked it better than 2, but not as good as 1. The highs were great and the lows were pretty dang bad. Sneeze, Naoki Urasawa's short story collection. This, other than the 5 or so episodes I've watched of Monster, is the only work of Naoki Urasawa that I have consumed. I'm pretty happy with my purchase. Each story has heart and a surprising depth. Without knowing much about his work, I can tell why he is so greatly renowned with just these short stories. My favorites were Throw to the Moon and Kaiju Kingdom. Both really great little stories with unique ideas taken in unique ways. This little book also features a travel log of a time Urasawa went to LA for a vacation. You get an understanding of the guy behind the work with it, and it was a nice addition. Solid collection of stories, would definitely recommend to people who either like his work or just like comics in general. I will watch Monster someday or read it. I don't know. One of the two. Pokemon. So I technically finished these 3 Pokemon games. I have minor thoughts on them. So Fire Red. The Sevii Islands can be cool. I think, and it added some new things to Kanto that I wish could have explored in the modern game like Let's Go. Because Fire Red's old and I don't like old. The Elite Four are a bit of a pushover, so if you have healing items, you're good. Poliwrath practically solos. Emeralds. I like that they have both magma and aqua stuff. Would have been cooler if their hideouts were more interesting and if the player had more input in the final confrontation with Rayquaza and Groudon/Kyogre. Elite Four is even more of a pushover than Fire Red. You can solo with Rayquaza that you can catch at level 70 for free. Colosseum. This game is slow. Double battles are fun and engaging, but I use a level 100 Quagsire through the whole thing. Catching Pokemon from other trainers is novel, but when the novelty wears off, it's hell. It takes so long to catch one Pokemon, especially if you're dumb like me and try to go for the Premier Balls only. Final battle seemed like it could be a challenge with a playthrough team. It was a bit of a challenge with Quagsire, but I was also trying to catch the Tyranitar in a Premier Ball. I gave up and caught it in a Master Ball. Goblin Slayer Season 1 and also the movie. This was a really good... Oh, this is a watch-along anime, too. This is a really good show. Keeps you on your toes and is honestly a pretty fun ride the whole way. The cast is a ton of fun, and the relationships/dynamics are just so well written. The premise is also really gripping. The main character doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things in the world. He's just trying to not let anyone else suffer the same trauma he did as a kid. World building is solid, with plenty of room to grow in subsequent seasons. I was definitely sleeping on this show for far too long. I also can't get enough of Goblin Slayer just being all like, I'm gonna go kill some goblins today. Very stupid but funny, and hype all at the same time. The movie. Honestly, I don't think the movie was all that great. It just felt too quickly paced. It very much reminded me of the Naruto movies where there is a new character introduced just for the movie and you never see them ever again. It's technically canon though, so it's a must watch. And honestly, it's worth the watch as well. It may not be as good as Season 1, but it was still good. It's just hard when you're comparing it to Season 1. One of my biggest issues with condensing an entire arc of something into a movie from an anime/manga/light novel thing is that you just have to skip out on so much stuff. I think it works better for manga being condensed into a movie, but a whole light novel, there's just way too much details you're trying to get. The Boys Season 3. Season 3 felt like a solid sequel to the previous seasons. I'm heavily invested in the story and the characters by now, so the anxious feelings that I craved in Season 1 aren't an issue anymore. They really aren't present here, but I'm all for the journey at this point. Biggest and probably only issue with the season is Homelander's... This character doesn't even feel like the same. I mean, it's kind of a spoiler. I almost said it. I'll just say one character specifically didn't feel like the same character they did in the last season. He does 180s on his ideals so fast. Here we go. This character, Starlight's definitely my favorite character, and this season did her character wonders. Cool. There we go. The Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Stories manga, specifically the Sky Striker arc, it's technically the first arc. They're doing the Magistus lore, I believe, now. Anyway, Sky Strikers. This was a fun manga telling the lore of the card archetype for the Sky Strikers. My favorite deck in the game, and that was that was pretty cool. I don't really think it was like the greatest thing ever, but it was good. Like, it was good, but I don't know if it's good enough for people to pick up and read if they weren't already fans of the card game or even the cards themselves. I literally read this because I like the Sky Striker deck. That said, I would much prefer a branded lore story if you're going to do that for manga. Give me some Albaz and Ecclesia lore, please. 13 going on 30. Still a really fun movie that holds up really well. The music is awesome and the story is easy to get behind. It's also hilarious at the right times. If I were to overanalyze it, I'd say the biggest problem were how they wrote Lucy as the antagonist and how fast everything happened in the last 5 minutes of the film. Lucy being the antagonist is good, it just sort of feels like it came out of left field. Like she reverted to being her 13-year-old self, which in a way works, though sort of like not. Other than that, there were no indications while they were 30 that she'd backstabbed Jenna. The ending is fun when you get to see Jenna go back in time, but like, it all just happened way too fast. Also, as an aside, I would have liked to see more of Maddie and Jenna being 30 after the show, like a prologue. Like, does Jenna work for Poise, etc. Regardless, I'm looking way too much into the show. I'll just say it was a fun and good show to watch. Now we're in November. We're almost there. Hour and 30 minutes. Oh my gosh, I've been doing this for too long. Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury seasons 1 and 2. I did not think this was going to be such an emotionally driven show when I started. Real talk, I heard a lot of Gundam fans didn't like it as much because it was slice of life. And while it did have elements of that, it was far more deep in a tragic story than it leads on to be. I was blown away by it pretty much the whole way through. Each character is incredibly deep and has phenomenal arcs. Not just the main leads, but a lot of the side characters even go on incredible self-searching journeys that were all masterfully written. Specifically the dude with the pink hair. You can see, I'll just use my mouse. Can you see my mouse? Kinda, right there. This guy. Real good. Specifically him. It wasn't a perfect show, but it hit me way too many times. There it is, Guel. His name was Guel. Guel's story in particular really got me, as well as Miorine. Miorine had a good story. She's the white-haired girl, lead girl. Both had similar stories. Guel went on a personal journey, and Miorine realized she couldn't escape her life. Suletta, she's the main girl with red hair. Suletta's story is tragic, and I was happy to see her smile at the end. The season 1 finale was probably the peak for me, paralleling the prologue episode and showing its hand at what the story really wants to be. There are plenty of things throughout though that kept me easily engaged and excited to keep watching. This was definitely one of the good ones. Probably, I think it's my top 3 anime of the year. Kaguya-sama Love is War, The First Kiss That Never Ends. So this is technically like a 4-episode special or a movie, depending on how you watched it. I watched it as 4 episodes, so that's what it was for me. What can I say? I love this show. It's so good and everyone should watch it. I love that it's not only just a funny show, but it has a surprisingly deep characters with great arcs. The movie covers the aftermath of the anime ending, which in all honesty doesn't have to have a lot of comedy and gets incredibly deep. The comedy is still present though and very welcomed. Best rom-com ever made. Thank you, Aka Sensei. Yeah, it's peak. Definitely give it a watch. If you like anything romance, even if you don't like anime, just watch Kaguya-sama. Masamune-kun's Revenge. It's a manga that I read. I went into this looking for some peak rom-com trash, but what I found was surprisingly good writing for the most part. I legitimately felt for the characters at some points. There are definitely some roughly written segments, especially with how much was done near the end. It made me feel that the writer wanted to do this thing from the start, but didn't quite stick the landing. Regardless, I saw what they were going for and it still worked out. The 2 main characters were the best part anyway, and their story was still good in my opinion. I really wish, though, that this story went farther than the 2 getting together, though. I would have definitely have loved some more epilogue stuff. Earlier I was saying prologue for things. I meant epilogue for the main 2. Fun and quick read. Yeah, it's a pretty short one, but yeah, I would love some more epilogue. That would be a lot more fun. Call of the Night. It's an anime. I really don't like the show. It was a watch along. I knew it when I tried reading the manga and I started watching the anime as well for the first time that I wouldn't like it. This time I was forced to watch it for the podcast, but regardless, my overall opinion didn't change. The main character kind of sucks, the overall plot doesn't really even see subtle progression between arcs, and the only intriguing part that they didn't focus on, and the only intriguing part was something they didn't really focus on at all. I was way more interested into finding out about Nazuna, the vampire girl. I was way more interested in finding about her past, why she became a vampire, and what happened to the person she loved back then, because that's how you become a vampire in the world, is you love a vampire. I would have liked that even more so for... I would have liked that even more so for all of the vampires, if I'm being honest, because all the vampires, that's how they all do it. You get a subtle tease for it for one of them in the last episode, but the question is dodged. I will say though, the last scenes were very cute and I liked them. Also, the music is incredible and the visuals are stunning. Story bad though. Shirobako, the anime and the movie. I've got a lot to say about this one. This one's freaking good. It's been a while since I binged a show as fast as I did with this one, specifically anime, I guess. 24 episodes total, and I basically watched the whole thing in a single day, save for like 5 to 8 episodes. Similar to how Bakuman is a manga about making manga, this anime is about what goes into making an anime. After watching the first couple episodes, I knew I liked it and knew that I'd keep watching it. But now after finishing it, I'm blown away with just how much I did end up enjoying it. I'm not sure if it's because of the creative slump I'm in as to why I've been watching so many shows with the speed, or if I just liked it as much as I think I did. Yeah, during this month of November, I was struggling to write scripts and stuff for YouTube videos, which is partly why I watched a lot of extra things. The whole cast was so fun, and their problems were completely genuine. The story somehow keeps you on the edge of your seat, even with it being as simple as it is. My favorite character was Shizuka Sakaki. She is the friend who wanted to be a voice actress, and although she tried so hard, it really wasn't until the final couple of episodes that she was actually able to achieve her goal. She constantly saw other people around her, old and younger, do everything she's always wanted to do. The scene when she's watching TV about a girl who was in high school being a voice actor hit me especially hard. Not just randos, but her best friends as well are all being able to accomplish their dreams, and it seemed that she was being left behind. She keeps fighting though, and it won me over. It's fun to get some cool insight on the anime production world as well, but honestly, I think I love this show more because I am an aspiring creator, and I got to see the journey of some characters become creators. Gonna watch the movie tomorrow. It's 12:52 a.m. right now. I'm tired. Here's the movie. Yep, I did it. I did watch the anime movie, and it was pretty good too. I was definitely sad to find that they never did a dub. Oh yeah, a dub of the movie, because I watched the series dubbed, but it was still alright. The plot wasn't my favorite. It was a little bit rough to see, because once again, anime movies are kind of rough, to see the cast sort of be thrown. Oh, never mind. Well, yes, there were, I think, issues because of the movie, but anyway, I'm just gonna start this whole sentence over. The plot wasn't my favorite. It was a little rough to see the cast be sort of thrown down into a depression again after all they did in the TV show. Not terribly done though, and like it's life, so yeah, it works. There was much more of a heavy focus on the main character this time around, so the other main girls didn't really have much of an arc themselves. Not bad by any means. I prefer the TV show, but the movie is really just like if you want more of the main character. Bit hard to explain, but yeah, it's just more of the show and just more narrowed in. So still good. The Dragon Force North American Tour concert. We went to a show. What a show. They really put on an entertaining show, not just Dragon Force, but the other bands as well. I don't see their name. Oh, Nanowar of Steel specifically. They're crazy performers. Each was very different and entertaining in their own right. Dragon Force, though, was definitely the highlight, though. Throwing out stuffed chickens for the crowd to bounce around during the power of the Triforce was very cool, and pulling out the air dragons at the start of Highway to Oblivion was sick. I loved it. Link Click Season 1. That almost looks like a Season 2 picture. That is a Season 2 picture. Pretend that's a 1. What a surprising little show I stumbled across. And we did this for a watch-along as well, by the way. It does each episode is a little condensed story, but they also have strings and pieces that connect it to the overall plot. Time travel is a bit jank and honestly just serves the purpose of having it there. There really aren't any time travel rules other than, hey, don't change anything, but if you do, things might get a little bit effy, but only enough to serve the plot, of course. Regardless, though, through and through, it was just a fun ride. Big cliffhanger on this one, so gonna have to watch season 2 as well. Spoiler, I watched like 4 episodes of season 2 and kind of fell off of it, so didn't hit as hard. Black Ops Cold War. Now, that's how you make a Black Ops game. Where the hell was this when they made Black Ops 3? This one was so damn good. Aside from the phenomenal sound design, weighty combat, and an incredible classic Call of Duty gunplay, the campaign was leagues better than Black Ops 3. The game honestly felt like everything Black Ops 3 wanted to be, but set in a more believable year and with a much easier to follow storyline. Not only was it easier to follow, but I actually cared. One of course because of the classic character I knew from Black Ops 1, and 2 because they were actually able to integrate a player-created character in a much more natural and fitting way. Let it be known that I'm still much more for the MC just being an actual character, but this is the next best thing. The side content where you're able to actually figure out with clues from the missions was also done in a great way too, far better than whatever Black Ops 2 did. This game felt much more closer to Black Ops 1 with modern enhancements. Such a good Call of Duty, and thus ends my Black Ops playthroughs. I may do Modern Warfare next, that's a big if. Maybe I'll go back and do World at War. I have no interest in playing Call of Duty right now, so who knows when I'll do that. Go watch my video. Scott Pilgrim takes off, the anime. I don't really like the original movie of Scott Pilgrim, but the short rebuild anime of it was still pretty fun. I was genuinely laughing at many different scenes. I liked the overall story and was happy that they respected the original story and hearkened to it, even though I didn't like it. Animation was very solid and it was a nice story for sure, but I don't have a lot to say if I'm being honest. It was there and now it's over. I did like how he hit on Ramona with the Sonic though. That was kind of funny and cool. Mistborn: The Bands of Mourning. This is the last Mistborn book I read this year, or went through this year. So I'm not sure what it is with Era 2 of Mistborn. Like, I honestly really like it, but at the same time, I'm definitely not as invested as I was with Era 1. I love the characters in Era 2. Honestly, I sort of like them better than I did the cast of Era 1, say for Vin, Elend, and Kelsier. I wonder if it's because it doesn't really feel like it's building up to anything substantial like Era 1 was. Regardless, and gripes out of the way, The Bands of Mourning was still quite fun. The ever-expanding world is really great, and this one was no different. My favorite part of this era is Wax and Steris' relationship, and this one was phenomenal for it. Some stellar moments in this book, but if I'm being honest, the climax wasn't as fun as the prior books, and I also called the twist miles away. Great story regardless, and I do love seeing the cast continue their story. I hear the next book, I've not done anything with it, but I hear the next book is just blows your freaking mind. So, very excited. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC Part 2, the Indigo Disc. Okay, this part of the DLC definitely makes it all worth it in my opinion. I really enjoyed playing this and no-lifed it for the weekend it came out. I enjoyed the black and white fan service, the new characters, the story even had some fun moments. Dunking on Kieran with Ogre Pond was the icing on the cake. Multiplayer was actually a lot of fun and feels completely worthwhile to do. The only issue is that this is still Scarlet and Violet. It may have some of the best Pokemon gameplay ever, but it still looks and runs as bad as it always did. Like, damn, if only, right? These games really had great potential and introduced a ton of really good things for the series. But they will only be known as the garbage performing looking Pokemon games, which is sad. Rick and Morty Season 7. It was more Rick and Morty, but this time it was definitely funnier. It was most likely more enjoyable because I watch it with my brother. Best joke of the season was when Rick was talking to the monster instead. The monster was like painting or drawing. Rick picks up the picture and goes, "Oh, it's really good. It's wonderful. Let's put it right up here on the fridge for you." It's hilarious. I'm in love with the Villainous anime, and I caught up with the manga as well. This show blew my expectations out of the water. I had no idea I would enjoy it as much as I did. It was a fun romance through to the very end. Very simple story, but the characters were deep, and seeing the relationship change throughout the story was a ton of fun. After reading the manga, I can say that the anime did adapt it much better, but the base story is still the same and lots of fun. Plus, I was able to get more stories there too. Overtake anime. This is a part racing anime, part character drama. Honestly, the story is pretty good, and at times it really hits you. I enjoyed the last episode as well. It wrapped things up very nicely. It sort of felt like it had an identity issue at times, but pushing through the rough parts was definitely the move. Worth the watch for sure, just not the greatest thing I've ever watched. MF Go Season 1. The sequel to Initial D stands up to its predecessor quite well in my opinion. I honestly like that there was an overarching subplot and it's not just racing all of the time. The pacing felt weird for it to be called Season 1. It definitely felt like the first half of a season. They announced Season 2 already though, so yeah. The fan service in my opinion is a little much at times and some characters are repulsive, but the main boy Kanada is nice and wholesome, so it makes up for all the bad. I think the way they went around making it so his underpowered car can race against supercars is pretty cool, albeit kind of dumb at the same time. Nonetheless, it's more fun Eurobeat racing, and I'm here for it. Our dating story, the experienced you and the inexperienced me. Typical trash romance anime, and this time it was not that great compared to the others on this huge document. I'll concede that there were some moments that I really enjoyed a lot, but they're almost always followed up by some boring plots, lame characters, and trash animation. Overall, there are plenty other far better trash romance to watch, and this is not the one. Migration. It's a movie, little animated by Illumination. Very cute movie about a family of mallards going on their first migration. The plot was very safe and it didn't do anything crazy, save for the cult-like group of ducks, which was honestly very surprising to me. I definitely found that interesting and wondered if that was the writer's intention to make it seem like a cult. I also liked the "don't let him bust your bills" joke because it was bust your balls. I thought it was funny. How the Gringo Stole Christmas. This movie was an excuse for George Lopez to be racist towards white people. It had some funny moments but got stale real fast. After the first quarter of the movie, I realized that most of the jokes were just going to be the same thing over and over. The ending was satisfying, though I will say. Overall, the movie is pretty garbage. Christmas with the Cranks. Classic Christmas movie. Tim Allen is quite funny, and the movie holds up well. Solid holiday seasonal entertainment. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This movie was very lame. The first one as well, but at least that one had some incredible cinematography moments. This one's plot was very mediocre, and all of the cool and interesting plot/world building ideas were brushed over in about 5 minutes. The constant talk about global warming turned into a joke because of how often they brought it up. Talk about one of the most turn your brain off and be entertained by the movies in a while. Zom 100 Bucket List of the Dead anime. It's easily one of the best anime of the year. It's a shame about the huge delay for the final episodes, but when we got them, they delivered. In my opinion, has the best anime intro of all time. The story is fun, the characters are a blast, and the pacing and cinematography is impeccable. You really can't go wrong with this one. I've praised the manga a ton, as you've heard, then the anime is 10 times better. Maybe if we're all lucky, we'll get a season 2. 16-bit sensation, another layer. This anime was a real fun show. The plot was semi-nonsensical, but it doesn't matter. It was still very enjoyable when you look past the magic time travel. I loved the huge Steins Gate reference. It was very hype. The name of the show was pretty bad though, to be honest. Another layer implies that this is a sequel, and it is not. It's standalone. Regardless, lots of fun characters and a fun story. Here it is, the big banger right here at the end. Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky. This game took me over a whole year to beat. I started in December of 2022 and finished it January 1st, 2024. So technically, it was a media I consumed in 2023, but it wasn't a media I consumed in 2023, but I don't really care because I did. I did a 10-hour session of the game on the 31st, so I'm going to count it. I both adore and loathe this game all at the same time. The story was wildly fun, and the cast/character arcs were even better. Probably some of the best dialogue I've seen in a game, period. The combat system is honestly a ton of fun, and the magic system was amazing when I figured out how everything worked. Yet I still hated this game at points. I don't think I've ever been more livid about losing to a final boss than I ever have than I was here. It literally felt like I could not win. I ended up grinding about an hour and went in with my game-breaking skills times 3 and cheesed the whole thing. The lulls of this game hit way harder than I would like to admit. Part of the reason it took me so long to beat was because I would take month-long breaks because it just never sounded fun to sit down and play. When I did though, I would usually enjoy my play session. I ended this game with 40 hours, and I feel like that's a bit high. I'm not sure if or when I'll play the next game, but at this point I feel obligated to. All in all, it's a good game. It's just an old game that was made for the PlayStation Portable. And that's it. That's all the stuff I did this year. So just briefly before we finish, I'm going to quickly talk about some of the stuff that I did that were like live service games, for example, that didn't make it onto this list because I didn't finish them. I'll run through them and just talk about the big ones. Apex Legends, Overwatch 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Smite, Teamfight Tactics, Friends vs. Friends, which was like an hour I played, Halo Infinite, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, Fall Guys, Inkbound, Prey, BattleBit Remastered, Gears 5, Neon White, Sims 4, and the Full Metal Alchemist manga. I'm on Volume 3 right now. Okay, the big ones I want to talk about are Apex Legends and Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Let's start with Apex. Apex is a ton of fun. It's the best battle royale in my opinion. I think it's got the best gunplay of any shooter, honestly. Titanfall is just as good, so that's partly why Apex is so good. The lore is pretty interesting to get into as well, so it's, I don't know, overall it's just a solid game. It plays really well too. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, I love Yu-Gi-Oh! This is how I'm able to play it because I can't really go to any locals I don't have anywhere near me. And so if I want to play the game, I have to play it online, and this is how I do it. I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Super fun. I love the lore of the cards, and as you saw with the Sky Strikers manga, and the gameplay is honestly really fun. I love the back and forth that you have with players. I love that it's not just, okay, my turn's done. You can just go now, and I'm going to get on my phone and play on Reddit for a little bit. Like the Pokemon trading card game, for example. There's like, you have to be involved with their turn. You have to know what they're doing so you can react to it accordingly. Super fun. But anyway, that does it. That is everything I did in the year of 2023. And we just did it under 2 hours. Let's go. See you guys next year.